Now, I think we can all agree that there's something nostalgic about watching horror movies with your family, whether it's sitting cross-legged on the living room floor with your siblings, or perhaps just in your room by yourself. No matter the scenario, however, everyone pretends not to be scared, yet secretly, they're all shivering in their boots. The good thing about these memories is that back then, fear was fun. The thought of turning off the movie never really crossed anybody's mind. Some movies tend to stick with you, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about a 20-year-old film that not only terrorized me, but seemed to have stuck with everybody no matter how long it's been. That film being Ghost Pictures' 2004 horror breakout, The Grudge. Now, this movie was a technical remake from the Ju-on franchise out in Japan. Some might even call it a Western culture transplant. I think we all can agree that we can call it pretty scary. Following its pseudo-predecessor, The Ring, The Grudge was 2000's biggest horror. Directed by Takashi Shimizu, the very man who created and directed the Ju-on franchise, this film had a lot to live up to. Depending on how you look at it, it either delivers a cold case of dread or completely loses its edge in translation. Quite literally. Today we're going to be breaking down what works, what kind of works, why The Grudge remains to be one of the most frustratingly scary and interesting horror film of its decade. As stated earlier, it had a major cultural buzz following The Ring from 2002. American audiences, or even Western audiences, were still kind of new to the Japanese horror, J-horror storytelling. Now, for a lot of people in 2004, this was their first encounter with J-horrors. The non-linear storytelling, silent hauntings, and also inevitable deaths. Surprisingly though, some people were even stating that they were scared in the moment, but super confused after. Now, if you grew up watching this DVD or VHS in the dark with your TV brightness turned all the way down, this might have just been your nightmare fuel. I know it was for me, but let's see how it holds up in a closer lens. Before we really dive into The Grudge, let's back it up a little bit. This was Ghost House Pictures' first big horror swing. Founded by Sam Raimi and Robert Tapert, the same duo behind Evil Dead, and heavy hitters like Don't Breathe and Drag Me to Hell, but The Grudge was different. It was slower, more restrained, less blood, but a lot more unease. The Grudge, however, is the one film in their library that relies almost entirely on atmosphere instead of action. It's also the one where the fear creeps up on you instead of jumping at you. Kind of. That's what makes this film a strange but fascinating starting point for a company that would later go full throttle. Before we get into The Grudge, make sure your lights are turned off, TV's turned up, and ensure you got something to snack on. See if The Grudge really does hold up its heavyweight title of one of the scariest films ever made. To start off, the plot is deceptively simple. Karen is an American exchange student in Tokyo. She ends up caring for an elderly woman, Emma, in a house where something horrible happened. The curse that lives there attaches to everyone, and one by one, everyone kind of just dies. Something that I really love that Takashi did is that he really does start off the film with capturing the audience on what actually is happening without giving us too much information. Time doesn't really matter. The story isn't told front to back. We jump between characters, some of whom are already dead when we meet them. It creates a sense of disorientation that mirrors the curse itself. According to interviews with Shimizu, this structure was meant to reflect how trauma doesn't follow a neat timeline. It surfaces unexpectedly, it distorts your sense of reality, which is an interesting idea, but in the American version, it loses emotional texture. The atmosphere is where The Grudge makes its strongest impression, however. The house feels stale, claustrophobic at times. The camera lingers on empty spaces, staircases, corners of ceilings. It's not about what jumps out, it's about what might. And then it jumps out. Now, Shimizu uses silence as a weapon. There are entire stretches with no music, no dialogue, just the hum of air. He said in one interview, "Fear should come from stillness, not chaos." And that bleeds through every scene. The shelf life kind of expires on that. We don't really get to know these characters. Karen is a vessel for the viewer, and everyone else exists just long enough to get cursed. As we know, that can work in a short film. Your attention span really isn't that long. When it's over 90 minutes, it kind of stretches that veil. Still, credit where it's due, the sound design is awesome. That stupid iconic death rattle, it's like a warning bell, and it never quite lets you settle. When I hear this, and when I was watching this film again to do this, I cannot tell you the legitimate visceral reaction that I got from hearing that croak. It's almost like it's bringing up child trauma I never had. It made me feel so terrified, and I know it's a movie, but God, that sound. Talking about the sound, when we talk about The Grudge, we have to talk about Ju-on. Again, same director, same basic plot, but the difference in tone is massive. Ju-on is kind of like a lo-fi, grim version of The Grudge. It's unforgiving, it doesn't really explain itself, it doesn't try to guide you. You're just there, trapped in a looping nightmare, and that loop is important. The curse repeats because it's unsolved. The one thing that The Grudge lacks is that it's there because it's there. It feels like it's trying to thread this needle while really pandering towards keeping it spooky for Western audiences. Given the adaptation, it doesn't really get that abstract. The result? It's a film that's technically faithful, but spiritually muted. The lack of directorial clarity really shows, especially in how the performances feel detached. The Bill Pullman opener, that's pretty bold. No music, no warning, just him yeeting himself off the balcony. That's how you start a horror movie, and the film shifts. Now, I'm not one to say that body horror or any other type of scare factor doesn't work. However, I can say, even with rewatching this, it is pretty graphic, which now that it's been 20 plus years, I can say, it's pretty good. Then we meet Matt and Jennifer, who move into the house. They die, the timeline fractures, and we loop back to the earlier victims. One standout sequence, however, is the elevator scene, where Susan rides up and each passing floor shows Toshio getting closer. It's subtle, but extremely effective. Every floor she goes up, he's just a little bit closer, and then he's not. That's the kind of horror this movie could have delivered more consistently. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who plays Karen, mentioned in a press interview that she didn't see the original Ju-on before filming and was often confused by what was happening. She stated, "I didn't know if I was alive or dead in some scenes." The problem with that is I understand coming at it with a fresh perspective, but if you're trying to keep the same pace, I feel like you should have at least have read the book before, if you catch my drift. And another issue, after a while, every scare feels the same. A croak, a flicker, and then Keiko shows up. Keiko is rooted in the Onryo tradition, a spirit of vengeance. Her story echoes Yotsuya Kaidan, Japan's most famous ghost tale. In life, she was murdered by her jealous husband. Her rage becomes infectious. That broken movement she does, it's based from Buto, a dance form built around distortion and suffering. And again, that croak, that's all her. The actress Takako Fuji wanted to do it live to really embody who Keiko is and what she entails with. Also, that cat, originally, the cat was going to be a recurring jump scare. Shimizu cut most of the moments to keep the curse ambiguous. He didn't want the cat to be more or less an attraction in a theme park. Carrying on with the movie, Karen tries to stop the curse. She sets the house on fire. Classic American resolution, right? All we needed were a few ARs and some explosions, and that's America, baby. But this isn't a ghost you can banish. The final shot makes that clear. Keiko survives, the curse moves, which makes the ending kind of frustrating to a lot of people. But that's kind of the point. You don't beat grief, you survive it until it comes back. So how did the audience respond? At the time, The Grudge was a box office success, earning 187 million worldwide. People were curious for many reasons. This was their first taste of J-horror structure, slow dread, disjointed time, no happy ending. I think given its time, The Grudge was not only a Western success, but a good predecessor to what is to come. The sequels, none of them came close to matching the eerie isolation of Ju-on and The Grudge, because the more they tried to explain the curse, the less scary it became. The sequels, The Grudge is a film that feels like a halfway point. It brought Japanese J-horror to the Western atmosphere, but in doing so, it kind of blunted that blade. It's worth watching for the atmosphere, for the croak, definitely for nostalgia. But if you really want to feel the cold dread sink into your bones, go back and watch Ju-on. If you haven't watched Ju-on and only The Grudge, understand me when I tell you the vibes are different. I feel Ju-on does a lot better with Toshio, the boy. He's definitely more utilized in Ju-on than in The Grudge. Understanding the cat scream still, Ju-on effectively takes the cake on bringing that one home. Now, my thoughts on The Grudge is, as stated, this movie terrified me as a child. I mean, the croak, and every time I would wash my hair, I mean, in the back of my mind, quite literally, I was expecting those hands to come through my hair. Rewatching this film, as stated in the beginning, was quite terrifying. I had to watch it by myself in the dark. I didn't have to, but you know. The execution was great. It was very fun revisiting this movie. Brought back a lot of memories from when I was younger. Going to Hollywood Video or Blockbuster, my family and I would love to get horror movies, pretty much anything paranormal. To be honest with you guys. I mean, I think it really shaped my love for filmmaking, understanding the beauty of a correct jump scare and not overusing it like they do nowadays, especially getting a good taste of the old styles of horror, because back then the type of fear that you get from movies is much different than what you get now. My favorite type of horror movies are those ones that, yeah, they scare you in the moment, but once you get home, it's kind of been a few hours, you're winding down for bed, you got work the next morning, but it's impossible for you to go to sleep. That's the type of horror that I love. That's the type of horror for me that really works. And The Grudge definitely did it. Granted, yeah, I didn't have work back then, but I can tell you what, school was not better. I mean, it was impossible for me to go to sleep. Till this day, if I see anything that's the cracking body and that creaky voice, anything, I mean, instant chills up my spine. I have to constantly remind myself that it's not real. Kind of pathetic, I know. Now, what you've all been waiting for, we're gonna rate The Grudge from scare factor, cinematography, kind of, acting, and if the critics were right on their rating. Now, to be frank, Kyoko, the inherent fear that comes from this one is that no matter where you go, you're cursed. Once she has her cursed claws in you, there is no getting away. That's the really hard part about this. Yeah, don't get me wrong. All you gotta do is not go in the house, but how would you know? Who's to say that if you go over to your friend's house, you go inside to have dinner, you go home, next thing you know, you see long hair in the corner, kind of like spidering out at you. How would you have known? So to rate this on a scare level, I would have to say this scare gives my personal opinion an 8.5 out of 10. Simply because it still resonates with me. A lot of people still think this movie is terrifying. I think everybody, including me, is rightfully so. If you don't think this movie is scary in one bit, it's either you're too young and you've never seen it, or you're crazy. So now the cinematography of this is very, very well done. I really love the beginning where you get the visual from Mariah. I really love the perspective, even though it's not really kind of explained until the end, how you're kind of jumping from timelines and picking up little hints here and there. Like when Karen goes to check on Emma originally and she finds the note. I mean, the first watch, you can't really notice it, but that second, third, or fourth, or fifth, or 100th time you watched it, then you catch it and it kind of clicks with what it is. The vibe of the house is well done. It's just a normal traditional Japanese house. I don't know about you, but when I see these types of homes nowadays, it is in the back of my mind, I'm not gonna lie. So cinematography with your eeriness, where your presentation is, sticking to the Ju-on predecessor, I would have to give this a 7 out of 10. Also, the nice touches with the wind chimes just cutting off before everything happens. Love it. Acting, I would have to give this kind of a simple rating. I mean, you're only really given as much as you can. They do a lot of jumping, so it's kind of hard to keep that linear style. They do a good job catching those fears, getting the sense of what Kyoko is visually capable of. So acting for The Grudge, 7.8 out of 10. Now, do I think The Grudge still holds up to this day in 2025? Yeah, I think it really does grasp the early 2000s horror, especially the J-horror craze that was going on at the time. It's not really filled with a lot of fast-paced scares, but it does just enough to keep you engaged and wanting to know how it ends. So The Grudge, does it hold up? Yes, 100% yes, it does. Go watch it. After this video, go watch it. All right, guys. Now tell me, what are your thoughts on The Grudge? This movie had a really big impact on us when we were younger, and I still feel like, not only speaking for myself, but a lot of people tend to talk about this film still. It comes down to what's the scariest movie you've ever seen? What's a scary movie that still sticks with you? And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments, because I can't be the only one that hears that croak and gets chicken skin everywhere. There's no way. And while you're down there, guys, go ahead and give me some more recommendations of some horror films you like. We got a video coming out next week, every Monday. If you want to follow my Twitter, it's in the description. If you want to follow my Instagram, it's in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, all that stuff. And make sure tonight, when you're going to bed and you're turning off your hallway lights, you might want to check the corners of your room. You never know what might be in there.